The package was just another stop on a long route. Heavy, plain brown, no return address. I scanned the label as I always do, and then I froze. The sender's name, I knew it. It was my wife's maiden name, a name she hadn't used in years. My hands went cold. This wasn't a delivery. It was a message, and I was the one it was meant to break. I'd been a driver for 8 years. I knew my route, my customers, the rhythm of the day. My wife, Alina, and I had just celebrated our 5th anniversary. Life was routine, predictable, safe. But that name on the label, a ghost from before we even met, shattered all of it in an instant. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated delivery. And the real question wasn't what was in the box. It was what my wife had been hiding and why someone was now using me to expose it. I finished my route on autopilot, the package burning a hole on the passenger seat. I couldn't deliver it. Not yet. The rules said return to depot for address verification, but I knew this wasn't an error. Alina Whitman. That was the full name printed. She'd told me she changed it legally back in college, long before we met. Said she wanted a clean break from her family. I'd never questioned it. That night I placed the box on our kitchen counter. Alina was chopping vegetables. "Long day?" she asked, smiling. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Yeah, weird one. Had a package for a Whitman on my route, made me think of your mom." I watched her hands. The knife stopped for a fraction of a second. "Huh, small world," she said, not looking up. Too casual, the air in the room thickened. I needed to see what was inside. After she fell asleep, I took the box to the garage. It was sealed with reinforced tape. The weight was all wrong for documents. It was dense, uneven. Using a utility knife, I carefully slit the tape. Under layers of brown packing paper, I found not papers, but a sealed plastic bag. And inside that, a single, worn, leather-bound journal and a cheap prepaid cell phone. Journal's first page had a name, Martin Croft, and a date from 15 years ago. The entries were sporadic, chaotic. They spoke of a deal with a W family, a silent partnership, and recurring payments for ongoing discretion. The handwriting was rushed, anxious. Then, about a third of the way in, a new name appeared, Alina. The entry read, "Met with E today. She understands the terms. The inheritance stays quiet, the payments continue. She gets her new life. We get our insurance." My blood turned to ice. Inheritance, payments. The phone had one number saved. No contacts, no call history. It was a burner, a tool. This wasn't a personal keepsake mailed by accident. This was a leak. Someone named Martin Croft had sent me his own secret records, and he'd used my wife's abandoned name to ensure it came to me and only me. He wasn't just exposing her. He was warning me. The next morning, I called in sick. I drove to the address on the package label, a P.O. box at a mailing center across town. The clerk remembered nothing. Standard procedure. I ran Martin Croft's name through every public database I could find. Nothing. He was a ghost. But the journal mentioned a firm, Croft and Iverson, LLC. A dead-end search led me to archived business listings. The firm had dissolved a decade ago, specializing in asset management and private mediation. I started cross-referencing dates in the journal with our life. A large payment notation matched the month Alina suddenly paid off her student loans. A discretion bonus aligned with the down payment she'd contributed for our house. Money she said came from a long-term stock investment. I believed her. I'd never asked to see the statements. The journal's final entry was from 6 months ago. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. "They know I'm sick. The W family thinks the agreement dies with me, but E is getting greedy. She's asking for the principal. She thinks she can renegotiate. This will end badly. I've made a copy. Insurance." Then nothing. Martin Croft had stopped writing, and now his insurance policy had landed in my lap. I had to know who the W family was. Alina never spoke of her father. She said he died when she was young, that her mother remarried and changed their name. A fresh start. But the journal hinted at wealth, at hidden structures. That evening, I tried a different approach. "Do you ever miss being a Whitman?" I asked over dinner. She put her fork down. "Where is this coming from, Ben?" "The package just got me thinking about your past. Your dad, what was he like?" Her face closed off. He was complicated. It's not a happy story. I don't like digging it up. She stood to clear her plate, ending the conversation. It was the most she'd ever said, and it confirmed everything. There was a story, and it was buried for a reason. The prepaid phone rang 2 days later, shattering the silence of my empty van. I almost dropped it. I answered, saying nothing. A frail, raspy voice spoke. "You got my package." It was Martin Croft. "I did," I managed. "Good, then you know it's not about the money anymore. It's about the silence, and the silence is running out." "What do you want?" I asked. "Not a thing from you, son. I'm dying. I sent it because she's not who you think. The inheritance she's been tapping, it wasn't from her father, it was from a settlement, a wrongful death payout. Her mother wasn't the victim." He coughed, a wet, terrible sound. "Her mother was the defendant, and Alina was the sole witness who changed her story on the stand. The money was to ensure she never changed it back." The world tilted. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your wife's past isn't just a sad story. It's a crime scene. And the family that paid her, the W family, they aren't her relatives. They're the ones she testified against. They've been paying her for her loyalty and for her silence ever since. But now they think I've talked, and they think you're a liability." The line went dead. I sat there, the phone slick in my hand. It wasn't just betrayal. It was infinitely worse. My wife had built our life on a foundation of blood, money, and perjury. And the people who wrote the checks now thought I was a problem to be solved. The journal wasn't just a warning. It was a target he'd placed directly on my back. And I had just answered the call that proved I was now in the game. I stared at the dead phone, Croft's words echoing. A wrongful death case, perjury, blood money. The pieces spun, refusing to lock into a picture I could understand. I drove, nowhere in particular, just moving. I had to see the case. If it was real, it would be public record. I went to the Central Library, to the microfiche archives for the local paper from 18 years ago. I searched the month Croft's journal first mentioned the settlement. And there it was, October 12th. A headline, "Freight Yard Accident Claims Life of Longshoreman." The article was brief. Charles Whitcomb, age 44, killed in a loading zone accident. Faulty equipment from a subcontractor. Survived by a wife, Diane, and a teenage daughter. The subcontractor was a company called Valiant Industrial Supply. The case was settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. No criminal charges. An accident. But the name wasn't Whitman. It was Whitcomb, W family, not her family, their asterisk family. Charles Whitcomb was the victim. The payout went to his widow, Diane, so why was Alina getting money from them? The journal said she was the witness who changed her story. I dug deeper, searching court records for civil filings. Under a sealed settlement, I found a reference to a minor, a secondary claimant, a Jane Doe. That had to be her. She witnessed something. Something that could have turned an accident into a manslaughter case. I called the only person I knew who might have access to deeper records. My cousin, Lisa, a paralegal at a big firm. I lied. I said I was doing background research for a friend considering a lawsuit against Valiant. I gave her Charles Whitcomb's name and the date. "Can you see if there are any depositions or witness lists that aren't fully sealed? Just the names." Called back an hour later. "This is weird, Ben. The case file has a suppression order, but the initial police report it's referenced in a later appeal. There were 2 witnesses on the dock that night. One was the foreman who testified the safety latch was engaged. The other was a 16-year-old girl, an intern from the high school program. Her first statement to police said she saw the foreman disengage the latch manually just before the accident, but she recanted that statement 2 weeks later. Said she was confused, scared of the machinery. "What was the girl's name?" I asked, already knowing. "The initial report lists her as Alina Walsh. That was her mother's maiden name, I guess. The file has a note. Witness provided subsequent affidavit. Case settled on amended facts." Alina Walsh, who became Alina Whitman, who became my wife. She saw a man die. She told the truth, then she sold a lie. The Whitcomb family, to avoid a wrongful death lawsuit becoming a criminal negligence case, paid her for that recantation. And Martin Croft was the middleman, the mediator who structured the payments to look like an inheritance, doling them out over decades to ensure her permanent silence. I went home that night armed with nothing but a horrible truth. Elena was in the living room watching TV. She looked up, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Feeling better?" she asked. "No," I said, standing in the doorway. "I know about Charles Whitcomb." All the color drained from her face. The remote slipped from her hand. The room was silent except for the laugh track from the television. "What did you say?" "Charles Whitcomb, the doc, the safety latch, your first statement to the police." I recited it like a fact sheet, my voice hollow. "You were the witness. They paid you to change your story." She didn't deny it. She just stared, her breath shallow. "Who told you?" "That doesn't matter. Why would you do that?" Her composure shattered. "You think I had a choice? I was 16. My mother was drowning in debt. The foreman was a Whitcomb cousin. He told me if I didn't get confused, my family would be ruined. Then their lawyer, this smooth-talking man, Croft, he offered a solution. A way to help me and my mother, a trust, a future. All I had to do was sign a paper saying I was mistaken." Tears streamed down her face, but they were tears of rage, not remorse. "So I took it. I bought us a way out. And I buried it until you dug it up. It wasn't an inheritance, Elena. It was hush money. And you've been living on it. Our life is built on it." "It's my money," she shouted, standing up. "I paid for it. I live with that night every single day. You don't get to judge me. You have no idea what that pressure is like. But you lied to me. For years. You let me believe a story about a dead father and a kind investment. Because it was none of your business." The mask was fully off now, revealing a person I didn't recognize. "It was my past, my burden, and now you've, been investigating me. Who told you, Ben? Was it Croft, that sick old man?" The confirmation was in her panic. She knew Croft was the source, which meant she knew he was a threat. "He's dying," I said, "and he thinks the Whitcombs are coming to clean up loose ends, starting with him, and maybe with anyone he's talked to." Her anger vanished, replaced by pure, cold fear. She stumbled back a step. "Oh God, what have you done?" "Me? What have you done? Who are these people, Elena?" "The Whitcombs aren't just a family. They're a network. The foreman, he was the black sheep. The company, Valiant, it's a shell. They have interests in shipping, logistics, trucking." Her eyes locked on mine, wide with terror. "Your depot, the regional manager, he's a Whitcomb nephew." The floor fell out from under me. My route, my schedule, my home address on file. They had access to all of it. Croft's warning wasn't paranoid. The target wasn't just theoretical. I was a driver for a company they influenced. They could find me anytime. The prepaid phone rang in my pocket, a shrill sound in the silent room. Elena's eyes snapped to it. "Don't answer that," she whispered. I answered. It was Croft again, his voice weaker. "They made me, took my files, but not the copy, not the journal. You have to use it." "Use it how?" "Leverage. The journal details the payment structure, the shell companies. It's proof of conspiracy to obstruct justice. You go to the police, it blows up the settlement. The Whitcombs face indictment, but you can't just walk in. They have people everywhere. You need a lawyer, a specific one, someone they can't touch." He coughed, a long, rattling sound. "His name is Harold Maddox. He's clean. He hates them. He represented the Longshoremen's Union years ago. He'll know what to do." He gave me a number, then the line went silent for the last time. I looked at Elena. "We need to call a lawyer." "We need to run," she said, her voice trembling. "It's too late for that. They already know I know. Our only chance is to expose it first." I dialed the number for Harold Maddox. He answered on the second ring, a calm, measured voice. I didn't give details, just said Martin Croft referred me regarding the Whitcomb Valiant matter. There was a long pause. "I see," Maddox said. "We should not speak on this line, my office. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. come alone and bring everything you have." I hung up. Elena was hugging herself, staring out the dark window. "They'll destroy us." "Maybe," I said. But I won't just wait for the delivery truck to show up with my own obituary inside. I spent the night scanning every page of Croft's journal, uploading encrypted copies to 3 different cloud accounts. I packed a bag with essentials, cash, the journal, and the burner phone. I was no longer trying to save my marriage. I was building a case for my survival. The next morning, I told Alina to stay inside, not to answer the door. I drove a circuitous route to Maddox's office, watching my mirror. His practice was in a modest brick building, not a glass high-rise. He was an older man, sharp-eyed, with a desk piled high with case files. He didn't offer small talk. "Show me," he said. I placed the journal on his desk. He put on reading glasses and spent 20 minutes in silence, turning pages, his expression growing grimmer. Finally, he looked up. "This is credible and highly dangerous. The statute of limitations on perjury is long past for Alina, but conspiracy to obstruct justice, fraud, potential tax evasion on these structured payments, that's very much alive, and the Whitcombs will not let this become public." What do I do? You have 2 choices. You give this to me, I take it to the district attorney's public integrity unit. It starts an official investigation. You and your wife become material witnesses, likely enter protection. Your life as you know it is over. And the second choice. You use the journal as a shield. You contact the Whitcombs through their lawyer. You tell them you have it, that copies are set to release automatically if anything happens to you. You negotiate a severance for you and Alina, a final, large payment to walk away and never speak of it again. Blackmail. Self-preservation, he corrected. The first option is the right thing. The second is the safe thing. I can't make that choice for you. I thought of Alina's fear, of the regional manager at my depot, of the feeling of being watched. Wright felt suicidal. If I choose option 2, can you make the contact? I can, but understand you will be dancing with the devil. You get 1 shot. You name a number too high, they'll just eliminate the problem. Too low, and they'll think you're weak. It has to be painful but logical for them. And you must have undeniable proof the information is beyond their reach. I named a figure, $2 million, enough to vanish. Maddox didn't blink. I'll draft the communication. It will go out today. Do not go home, check into a motel, pay cash. I will call you on this, he said, pointing to the burner phone. I did as he said. The motel room was damp and smelled of mildew. I waited for 8 hours. The phone rang just after 7 p.m. It wasn't Maddox. It was a new voice, smooth, cultured, and cold as stone. "Mr. Carter, this is Arthur Whitcomb. I understand you're in possession of some fanciful fiction belonging to a very sick old man." It was the patriarch. "It's not fiction, and I have copies. If I don't check in with my lawyer every 12 hours, or if I meet with an accident, they go to the DA and 3 major news outlets." A soft chuckle. "How dramatic. Let's not pretend this is a spy novel. You have something we want. We have something you want. Security. My lawyer says you have a number in mind." "I do." "Cut it in half. 1 million. A wire transfer to an account of your choosing. In return, you give us the original journal and all copies. You and Alina sign comprehensive NDAs. You move to another state and never contact anyone in our family or associated businesses again. It's not negotiable. 2 million. The journal is yours. The copies are deleted upon confirmation of funds, but the original deal with Alina is void. No more payments. She walks away clean, too." Silence on the line. "Then you have feelings for her after all this. Interesting." He let that hang, a psychological knife twist. "Very well, 2 million, but we do this in person, a show of good faith. You bring the journal to a neutral location. We bring a laptop and initiate the transfer in front of you. Once you see the funds pending, you hand over the journal and the phone you're holding. We verify the deletion of the cloud copies together. Then you leave." My every instinct screamed it was a trap. "Where?" "The old freight yard, dock number 7, tomorrow at noon. Come alone. We will be minimally staffed." The freight yard, where Charles Whitcomb died. It was a message, a power play. They wanted me on their ground, surrounded by the history of their crime. If I said no, the deal was off. If I said yes, I was walking into a lion's den with only a journal as a shield. I looked at the motel wall, peeling paint over concrete blocks. I had no good moves left. "I'll be there," I said, and ended the call. I immediately dialed Maddox. They agreed, but the meeting is at the freight yard, Dock 7, tomorrow. He sighed. "I was afraid of that. You cannot go there, Ben. It's a trap. They will never let you walk away with their money and their secrets." "Then what's my play? If I don't show, they come for me." "Your play," he said slowly, "is to give them what they want, but not in the way they expect. Do you still have the originals I told you to make? The physical copies of the journal pages?" "Yes, in a safety deposit box." "Good. Listen carefully. Tomorrow you are not going to the freight yard. I am, and I will be bringing a friend from the district attorney's office with a subpoena for all Valiant Industrial records based on new evidence of fraud. Your meeting is the perfect distraction. While they're waiting for you, we will be serving papers at their corporate headquarters. It turns their ambush into our opportunity." It was bold, it was dangerous, and it meant burning every bridge, declaring total war. What about Alina? Where is she now? At the house, I think. Tell her to leave, right now. Tell her to go to her mother's, a friend's, anywhere. The Whitcombs might move on her to get to you. Once we serve the papers, all bets are off. I called Alina. She picked up on the first ring, her voice a scared whisper. "Ben. Get out of the house. Now, don't pack, just go. Go to your sister's in Ohio. Don't tell me where, just go. It's about to blow up." "Did you make the deal?" "Something better, I'm ending it. Now go." I heard her sob, then the line went dead. I could only hope she listened. I spent the night in that motel room, staring at the ceiling, the journal and the burner phone on the nightstand like relics of a life that ended the moment I scanned that delivery label. I wasn't a husband or a delivery driver anymore. I was a witness. And by this time tomorrow, I would either be free or I would be another accident in a freight yard with a conveniently faulty story. The game was set. And I had just moved my final piece, blind to what theirs would be. Noon came and went. I watched the clock in the motel room, each minute stretching into an eternity. The burner phone was silent. My personal phone was off, buried under the mattress. At 12:30, I turned on the small TV, flipping to the local news. There was nothing. No breaking story about a police raid, no mention of Valiant Industrial, just weather and sports. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. At 1:15, the burner phone finally rang. It was Maddox. His voice was tight, strained. "It's done. The subpoena was served, but it didn't go as planned." "What happened?" "They were waiting for us, Ben. Their corporate counsel had a federal injunction ready, claiming our subpoena was based on stolen materials. They blocked the seizure. The DA's investigator was furious. He thinks we set him up for a procedural embarrassment. And the Whitcombs, they knew we were coming." "How?" "That's the question. Someone talked or someone was listening." He paused. "Where are you?" "Still at the motel. You told me to stay put." "Good, stay there. I'm coming to you. We need to regroup. This isn't over." He hung up. Something felt wrong. The speed of their countermove was impossible unless they had inside information. I looked at the journal. Had I missed something? I started flipping through the pages again, looking for any clue, any name I'd skimmed over. Near the back, on a page with faded ink, I found a short list of account numbers, and next to them a notation. "Retainer for ongoing consult, Maddox H." My blood ran cold. Harold Maddox. A retainer. I read it again, my mind refusing to process it. Croft's journal listed payments to Maddox for ongoing consult. The lawyer who represented the Longshoremen's Union was also on the Whitcomb payroll. It couldn't be. Croft said Maddox hated them, but the evidence was in the same handwriting, the same ink as the other entries. Maddox had lied. He wasn't clean. He was a plant. The phone rang again. It was Maddox. I'm 5 minutes out, be ready to move. Move where? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Somewhere safer. They might have tracked my car. We'll go to a second location I've arranged. A second location, where I'd be completely in his control. I was holding the proof of his corruption in my hands. Okay, I'll be ready. I hung up and immediately packed the journal, but I wasn't staying. If Maddox was dirty, then the whole plan was a setup. The DA raid failing wasn't a setback, it was the script. They wanted me isolated, scared, and dependent on the one person they owned. I peered out the motel room window. My car was in the far corner of the lot. Maddox's sedan would pull up to the front. I had maybe 3 minutes. I shoved my things into my bag, left the key on the table, and slipped out the back door, which led to a trash alley. I ran, crouching behind dumpsters, until I reached the side street. I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove, not toward any destination, just away. I needed to think. If Maddox was working for them, then everything he'd advised was designed to deliver me to them. The safe meeting at the freight yard was probably real, their preferred way to end it. His alternative, the failed raid, was meant to make me feel like I had no other option but to rely on him. They were hurting me. But why? They had the injunction. They blocked the subpoena. They could have just ignored me. Unless the journal contained something worse than I realized. Something that even an injunction couldn't protect them from. I pulled into a library parking lot and opened the journal again to the very last entry. I'd read it before, but now I scrutinized every word. The final entry was a rant, the handwriting a frantic scrawl. E is unstable. She's talking about going to the press, not for money, but for justice. She's forgotten the deal. The Whitcombs won't tolerate a loose end. They've asked me to review the original parameters. That means the doc. They want to recreate the accident, but with a new witness. They're planning something for Ben, the driver. They think he's the key to controlling her. They want to own him or remove him. My breath caught. This wasn't just about the past. They were planning a new accident for me. And Maddox was helping them set the stage. By making me run, by discrediting any official avenue, they were pushing me into a position where I'd have no choice but to engage with them directly, where I'd be vulnerable. I had to find Elena. She was the only other person who knew the whole truth, and if she was talking about going to the press, she was in even more danger than I was. I turned on my personal phone, ignoring the flood of missed calls from unknown numbers and from Maddox. I called Elena's sister in Ohio. "Sarah, it's Ben. Is Elena there?" "Ben, oh my God, we've been worried sick." "No, she's not here. She called last night, said she might come, but she never showed up. What's going on?" She sounded terrified. My heart sank. "If you hear from her, tell her to call me. It's urgent." I ended the call. Elena hadn't run. She'd gone somewhere else, or someone had found her first. The burner phone rang. It wasn't Maddox's number. It was the original Whitcomb number. Arthur Whitcomb's cold voice filled my ear. "You're a hard man to pin down, Mr. Carter. You stood up our meeting. You involved the authorities prematurely, and now you've made my lawyer quite cross." "Where's Elena?" "Safe for now. She's with us. She came to us, actually, quite sensible. She understands the value of the original agreement, unlike you." "Let me talk to her." "In due time. You have something we need. The original journal, not the copies, the physical book. You will bring it to the freight yard, Dock 7. Tonight at 9, you will come alone. You will not contact anyone. If you do, Elena will have a tragic accident, very similar to the one her testimony once covered up. Do you understand?" I understood perfectly. They had Elena. They were using her as the bait I couldn't refuse. And they wanted the original journal because it contained the one piece of evidence I hadn't even understood yet, something only the physical book could provide. The ink, the paper, a hidden note. "Fine," I said, "I'll be there. But I see Elena unharmed first, or I burn the journal in front of you." Agreed. The line went dead. I was out of moves, out of allies, and out of time. They had Elena. They had Maddox. They had the system tied up. All I had was a book and a desperate need to see my wife alive. But as I sat there, a new, terrible thought occurred to me. What if Alina coming to them wasn't a kidnapping? What if it was a reunion? She had been part of this world long before me. She knew the players. Her panic at the house, her fear it could have been real. Or it could have been a performance for my benefit, to make me the aggressive one, to make me dig up the journal and bring it into the light so they could finally destroy it. I didn't know what to believe anymore. The only thing I knew for certain was that the journal was the key, and I needed to find its secret before I walked into that freight yard. I drove to the safety deposit box location and retrieved the physical copies I'd made. I laid them out next to the original journal on a table in a 24-hour copy center. I compared them page by page under the bright fluorescent lights, and that's when I saw it. On page 47 of the original, the paper was slightly thicker. I'd assumed it was a flaw, but holding it up to the light, I saw a faint watermark, a pattern that wasn't on my copies. It was a logo, 3 interlinked circles, and beneath it in tiny, almost microscopic print, a string of numbers and letters. VIS Trust Alpha Act. Holder, Croft M/beneficiary. Walsh E/witness. Whitcomb A. It was a bank reference, a trust account number. The journal wasn't just a record, it was a financial instrument. The original with this watermark was proof of the active, ongoing trust fund, the hush money pipeline. My copies were just pictures of text. The original was the legal artifact. That's why they needed it, to destroy the physical proof of the financial conspiracy. With it gone, the money trail would be much harder, if not impossible, to trace. But the watermark also gave me something new, the exact trust account details. If I could get that to a real financial investigator, one not owned by the Whitcombs, we could freeze the assets, trace the flow of money. It was the silver bullet. I took photos of the watermark with my phone, zooming in on the account string. I emailed them to a new encrypted account I created, setting a delayed send to 3 news outlets for 9:30 p.m., 30 minutes after my meeting was supposed to start. A dead man's switch. Then I prepared to go to the freight yard. I had no weapon, no plan, no cavalry coming. All I had was the journal and the faint hope that seeing Alina would tell me whether she was a victim or a villain. I drove toward the industrial sector as the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky bleeding into deep purple. The freight yard loomed ahead, a skeletal landscape of rusted cranes and silent shipping containers. Dock 7 was where it all began, and where, one way or another, it would end tonight. I parked a quarter-mile away and walked the rest, the journal tucked inside my jacket, feeling its weight like a lead vest. I was walking into the heart of the beast, and the only thing I knew for sure was that not everyone walking out would be breathing. The freight yard was a cathedral of rust and shadows. Dock 7 was illuminated by a single, flickering sodium light. 2 figures stood in the pool of orange glow. Arthur Whitcomb, tall and severe in an overcoat, and next to him Alina, her hands clasped in front of her. She wasn't bound. She stood calmly. My heart cracked. I stepped into the light. I'm here. Where is the journal? Arthur's voice was flat. First, you let Alina walk to me, then you get the book. Arthur nodded almost imperceptibly. Alina took a step, then another, her eyes fixed on mine. There was no fear in them, only a cold, weary resignation. She stopped an arm's length away. Ben, she whispered. Are you okay? I asked, searching her face. She didn't answer. Arthur spoke. The journal now. I pulled it from my jacket, holding it up. The trust account details, the watermark, that's what you really want to burn, isn't it? Not the story, the money trail. A slow smile spread across Arthur's face. Very good. You're more perceptive than Croft led us to believe. Yes, the original instrument must be retired. The copies are meaningless without it. Hand it over. Not until Alina is safe in my car. Alina isn't going with you, Arthur said, his smile fading. She never was. She's staying with her family. Aren't you, dear? Alina looked at the ground. The final piece clicked into place. Her performance, her fear, her entire story, it was all part of the long con. She hadn't been kidnapped. She had come home. I was the mark right to the end. You set me up, I said to her, the words tasting like ash. The panic, the tears, you knew I'd dig. You knew I'd find the journal and bring it to you. You used me to clean up your mess. She finally met my eyes. I tried to protect you. I told you to let it go. You wouldn't listen. This was the only way to end it without you getting hurt. Without me getting hurt, I laughed, a hollow sound. You sold me out to the people who were planning my accident. Arthur cleared his throat. The journal, please, we're on a schedule. I made a decision. I tossed the journal onto the damp concrete between us. It skidded to a stop at Arthur's feet. He picked it up, opened to the watermarked page, and nodded to a man who emerged from the shadows with a small metal can. Gasoline. He doused the book and dropped a lit match. The journal erupted in a brief hot flame, curling in on itself until it was black pulp. There, Arthur said, the past is now ash. The trust is dissolved. The agreement is concluded. You have no evidence, Mr. Carter. You have no wife. You have nothing. He was right about the journal, but he was wrong about the evidence. The dead man's switch is already in motion, I said. Photos of the watermark, the account numbers. They go to 3 news outlets in 20 minutes. Your financial trail is about to be front-page news. Arthur's composure broke for a split second, his eyes widening. Then he chuckled. The delayed email. We thought you might try that. My IT team has been monitoring all outgoing traffic from this sector since 6 p.m. Any email from a new account with those attachments would be flagged and diverted. It's already been deleted. You have no leverage. He was right again. I had nothing. I was a man standing alone in a dark yard with the ruins of his life smoldering at his feet. Arthur turned to leave. Elena, come. She took one step toward him, then stopped. She looked back at me, and for a fleeting moment I saw the ghost of the woman I loved. Then it was gone. I'm sorry, Ben, she said, and it was the first true thing she'd said in weeks. She walked away, disappearing into the darkness with Arthur Whitcomb. I stood there numb. I had lost completely. I turned to walk back to my car, my footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. Then a new sound cut through the silence. Sirens. Not 1 or 2, but a chorus growing louder. Red and blue lights flashed at the yard's entrance, reflecting off 100 corrugated metal walls. A line of black SUVs and police cruisers sped down the service road surrounding the dock. Doors flew open. Men in FBI windbreakers poured out, weapons drawn. Federal agents, everyone on the ground now. Arthur Whitcomb and his man were seized before they could react. I dropped to my knees, hands behind my head. An agent pulled me up. Ben Carter. Yes. Come with me. He led me to a command SUV. Inside, a woman in a suit introduced herself. Special Agent Miller, Financial Crimes. We received your package. My package, the email was blocked. Not the email, the physical package. You mailed a set of photocopies and a handwritten note to our field office this afternoon. It arrived in our after-hours drop. The note said, if I don't call by 9 p.m., this is real and I'm at Dock 7. You didn't call. I had mailed the copies. In my panic, I'd forgotten. I dropped them in a blue mailbox on my way to the copy center, a last-ditch Hail Mary. It had worked. We've been building a case on the Whitcomb network for 2 years, Miller said, but we could never pin down the source of their off-book capital. Your package gave us the trust account. We moved in the second we confirmed the watermark. We've been watching this meet for an hour. Outside, agents were leading Arthur and his enforcer away in handcuffs. And then I saw Elena. She was being read her rights, her face a mask of shock. She looked over at me, her eyes pleading. I turned away. Agent Miller followed my gaze. She's facing conspiracy, wire fraud, and making false statements. It's a long list. You'll need to come in and give a full statement. You're not in trouble, but you are a material witness. I gave my statement for 6 hours. I told them everything, from the package to the phone calls to Maddox's betrayal. By dawn, the news was breaking. Prominent local family arrested in decades-long fraud scheme. Attorney Harold Maddox taken into custody. Wife implicated in elaborate conspiracy. The Whitcomb empire began to crumble by lunchtime. Assets were frozen. Investigations launched. I was given a new identity, a relocation. The driver named Ben Carter ceased to exist. A week later, I sat in a sterile government office. Agent Miller slid a document across the table. One last thing, the trust account. When the Whitcombs dissolved it this morning under court order, there was a residual balance, just over $200,000. As the whistleblower who provided the key evidence and given the unique circumstances, the court has approved its release to you. A fresh start. 200,000, not 2 million, but it was clean, it was mine. I took the check, folded it, and put it in my pocket. I walked out of the building into a sunny, anonymous afternoon in a city I didn't know. I was alone. I was free. But the victory felt hollow. The love had been a lie, the marriage a transaction, and the life a stage set. I bought a coffee and sat on a park bench. I pulled out the burner phone, the last artifact. I powered it on. There was one saved voicemail from the night Croft first called. I hadn't noticed it. I pressed play. Croft's raspy, dying voice filled my ear. One more thing I didn't write down. Alina did love you in her way. She fought to keep you out of it. The package sending it to you was my idea, a dying man's guilt. I used you to hurt them. For that, I am sorry. Don't let her pay for my sins alone. The truth is a weapon. Use it wisely. The message ended. I sat there as the sun dipped lower, the weight of his words settling on me. He had used me as a weapon of revenge from beyond the grave, and I had been a willing blade. I had wanted the truth, and I had gotten it. It had cost me everything, but it had also given me the only thing that was ever real, my own life, back in my own hands. I stood up, threw the burner phone into a trash can, and walked away. I didn't look back. The delivery had been made. The message had been received, and now it was time to write a new one. So what is the price of a life built on a secret? For Ben Carter, it was everything he thought he knew. A routine delivery, a name on a label, and the fragile fiction of his marriage dissolved into a decades-old conspiracy of greed and silence. He walked away with a new name and a clean bank account, but the man who received that package no longer exists. This story isn't really about a mysterious journal or a powerful family. It's about the boxes we all carry, the ones labeled with our past, our compromises, the truths we've agreed to ignore. We all have them. We stack them neatly in the corners of our lives, trusting that the tape will hold, that the address will never be read by the wrong person. But what happens when the delivery arrives? When the label has your name on it, but the contents belong to someone you love? The Whitcombs built an empire on a single, paid-for lie. Alina built a life on the proceeds. And Ben, he was just the delivery system, the unwitting courier for a truth that was always destined to spill out. We like to believe our relationships are transparent, that the foundations are solid. But this case reveals a more uncomfortable reality. Sometimes, the people closest to us are living in a completely different story, and the only thing protecting us from that story is their continued silence. Martin Croft, the dying mediator, thought he was doing the right thing by exposing the truth, but he was also weaponizing it, using Ben as an instrument of his own guilty conscience. It makes you wonder, is any truth ever completely pure, or is it always delivered with someone else's fingerprints all over it? In the end, the system worked. The guilty were arrested, the money was tracked, but there are no real winners here. A family is shattered. A woman faces prison, bound by a deal she made as a terrified teenager, and a man is left alone in a new city, forever wondering if the love he felt was ever real or just another expertly packaged fiction. The freight yard where it ended is quiet now, but the question it raises echoes far beyond its chain-link fences. How well do you really know the person sleeping next to you? What boxes are stacked in their past, waiting for the right or wrong moment to be delivered? And if your name was on the label, would you have the courage to open it? Some deliveries change your address. Others change your identity. And a rare few force you to rebuild your entire world from the ground up, with only the truth, however painful, as your blueprint. If this story made you look at the familiar in your life a little differently, then you've understood its warning. The most dangerous packages aren't the ones that explode on impact. They're the ones that unravel slowly, revealing secrets that change everything you thought was safe. For more documentaries that explore the hidden stories right in front of us, make sure to subscribe. Because sometimes, the most important delivery is the one that brings you the truth.